All right, so here with number 18, again, still performing the indicated operation and expressing in lowest terms, we know that when working with rational expressions, we want to get to a common denominator. And so here we have in our first fraction 8x minus 3, and here in our second fraction we have 3 minus 8x. Well, these are almost the same, aren't they? Except here we have a positive 8x, whereas here in the second fraction it's a negative 8x. Here in the first fraction we have a negative 3. Here in the second fraction it's a positive 3. And so, with exception to the signs, everything is the same, right? The two terms that make up each of these denominators are the same. So, what we can do is, in order to get this second denominator to match our first denominator, we can go ahead and change the sign, the operation that's being performed on both of these fractions here. So originally we have 8x minus 3. And if we want to get the signs of this second denominator to flip so that they match the signs of the first denominator, all we're going to do is change the sign in between. So we're going to go to a minus instead of a plus. And if this were a minus, then we would go to a plus. Remember, we're just flipping, changing to the opposite sign. And now we have 9 over. And by virtue of changing from a plus to a minus, we can now write positive 8x minus 3. All right, so again, by changing the sign, the operation that we're performing, we're able now to change the sign of the denominator. Right? So we have positive 8x, now positive 8x. Negative 3, now negative 3. And now that we have that common denominator, we know by now that the common denominator can just come over, and that allows us to perform the indicated operation with our numerator. So we now have 5 minus 9, and so we have negative 4 over this common denominator of 8x minus 3. So you can almost think of what we did here as factoring out a negative, right? Because if we were to take this negative and distribute it back through into the denominator, we would end up with the signs of the original denominator, right? If we took this minus and distributed it through the 8x, we'd have negative 8x, which is what we started with. And if we took the minus and distributed it to the negative 3, we'd end up with a positive 3, right? Negative times negative is positive. All right, so again, you gotta know that little step, that little trick, switching the sign and of the indicated operation sign rather, which allows you then to rewrite the second denominator, changing each sign. And by virtue of doing that, we get ourselves to a common denominator, and when we have that common denominator, we know that we can then perform the operation indicated with our numerator. And so we end up with negative 4 over 8x minus 3. All right, I'll see you at number 19.